Good evening, everyone. Here we are for our latest community information seminar. And I've got to say, I'm particularly excited about this seminar because we're doing a deep dive. We're going to be unpacking all things economic and what Willoughby City Council is doing to help not only local businesses, but the way that they interact with community, what we're doing to lead economic recovery. And we want to ensure that Willoughby's economy flourishes now and in the future. We're going to unpack how Council is working to help create jobs and wealth by bringing the businesses and also the community together. And it was very apparent during COVID how the businesses and the community do work so well together and support each other. So we want to try and facilitate that as much as we possibly can. We want to help existing businesses expand and attract new businesses, providing opportunities for trading and also attracting customers to help growth. We're going to be providing insights into the steps that Council has taken to support the recovery post-COVID and how we're encouraging the community to support local, which is so very important. I know with the local businesses in my area, I love being able to walk up to our little local centre, interact with people, meet the neighbours, and it was a really great sense of community, which we hope to foster into the future. We're also going to explore a raft of data. Yes, we'll be deep diving into data as well, revealing the state of the economy in the area. And we're going to be arming you with information to start your own business and also help you understand the state of the local economy at the moment, and also about exciting plans to reinvigorate our Chatswood CBD laneways. And the good news is we'll also be breaking for questions. We've got 3 different tranches of this presentation, which we do envisage will take around an hour and a quarter. And we'll be talking about Willoughby Council as providing a leadership role. We'll be talking about our data dashboard, and we'll be talking about Support Local, our food campaign, and also our laneways. And we've got some very special presenters who I'll introduce to you shortly. So our first presenter is our Economic Development Manager, John Elliott, and we're thrilled that John's now part of the team. He's got 30 years of experience working as an economic development role in the UK, Queensland, and now right here in Sydney. He's been with Council for around 7 months, and his key achievements have been attracting international business into the area, helping them expand, diversifying regional economies, building and managing a number of co-working spaces, and developing a range of strategies from economic development, tourism, arts and community plans. As you can tell, he's got a great depth of experience. And John's inspired by showing people a future and creating a roadmap of where we want to be, and importantly, ways that we can help people get there. So welcome, John. Great to hear from you today.
Thank you, Mayor. It's great to be here and be able to start to talk through about economic development and do some explanation of what that is.
Terrific. So over to you.
Okay, we've got the first presentation coming up. Okay, so economic development. So what I want to outline here is the role of economic development in a general sense, but that role in Willoughby itself. So economic development, it's a phrase that a lot of people have heard, and especially in the last year with COVID. And that's economic development is the investment in growing our economy and enhancing the prosperity and the quality of life for all our residents. So it's not just the business, it's about our local residents. And that's kind of distilled down to it's about creating wealth and about creating jobs. And that's my role. So the ways we do this, some key actions here in terms of helping to build a robust economy. What we're doing initially is we're setting the strategic aims, we're creating the right environment for business to operate in, and we're building the vision so that businesses have some clarity and certainty as to what the area is going to be like, so that when they make their investment decisions, that they know that the area is going to be exactly as they're looking for. We look at enabling job creation, and that's part of providing information and advice. There's a bit of information about that later. Providing places for business to operate. Council has a whole range of roles as a council, and economic development is a function of that, but also the planning scheme, so where business can operate in having commercial areas, retail areas and industrial estates. And that enables us to create opportunities for businesses to start up and for jobs and training. The other areas are we support business retention and expansion. Part of that is providing training or giving access to training to enable new skills to be developed, changes in the economy, and the next generation of people to come through for work. Providing business advice and support, helping businesses deal with situations, and we saw that most recently in the last year, of how to deal with that and the changes that businesses have had to go through, particularly COVID safety plans, and dealing with deliveries and changing the businesses. And also about, we highlight and celebrate local businesses, those key businesses that are very successful, that create a lot of jobs, bring in a lot of revenue, and promote the area by being here as well. And we also provide information on funding and grants. Council has a great online grant finder service, which you can go through and put in all the information that what you're looking for, and it will sort of give you a list of grants to help you find that. And we're about driving and supporting industry diversification. So we're identifying key growth business sectors, and then as you'll see in part of the data presentation, we've mapped those out, and there are differences depending on the sectors as to whether they're key for businesses numbers, employment numbers, or the output. So that's the amount of wealth they generate. And we also look to attract new businesses to the area, the kind of businesses we want in the key sectors that we want as well, to make sure that we have that full and robust economy. So some of the key ways we do this, in leadership and strategy, and this is very Willoughby context now. So council last year, as a COVID response, created a number of business support packages, and I'll talk about those in detail in a little bit. Also towards the end of last year, as we were coming out of that initial COVID response, we developed an economic recovery plan, which council approved at the end of last year, and we're working through that at the moment. And what that will lead into then is an economic development strategy, which we're starting the process of now. In terms of data and information, we've got our economic data dashboard, and Ella will be talking around that, and an online business toolkit, which is on our website, and that's to help businesses through the process of setting up or looking to expand or looking to grow. In terms of promotions and activations, we're setting up two big campaigns. One's a support local, which I'll talk about, and a food and drink campaign, which Sam will talk about later. And part of what Sam will also mention is the Culture Bites umbrella phrase we're using for a range of events and activities around the CBD. And in terms of the physical changes in the public realm, we'll talk about the laneways and what we're doing with the 4 laneways around Chatswood CBD. And also council, in terms of the advice, co-funds the Better Business Partnership, in terms of helping businesses improve their environmental sustainability. So that's a quick introduction to economic development and the sort of the overview of it. So if there's any questions, we have a question and answer session there. Otherwise, I'll go on to the next phase, which is the leadership and strategy role. So this section is about how council supporting the recovery of Willoughby in the economy post-COVID, and developing that strategy for the future about where we want to be and how we get there. So in terms of the COVID response, as I mentioned in March last year, which seems so long ago now, yeah. So much has changed. The council created a business support package, was very agile in responding to the COVID pandemic. That package injected $2.3 million into the local economy to help businesses survive. It was our immediate response. And that was through rent relief and fee concessions, primarily to help businesses stay afloat, reduce their costs, allow them to trade through and survive. As things went on, obviously, it carried on a bit longer. So council passed a second business support package in October, which injected a further $500,000 into the local economy in the same areas as well. Some of the businesses that we'd helped earlier on were getting back on their feet. So that's why there was a lower figure there. And that was a good sign that we saw that recovery happening. And then also in October, Council passed its economic recovery plan, which established a range of functions and starting to look forward from moving from dealing with the immediate shock impacts of COVID to actually how we recover and carry on. So that recovery plan had 3 key sections. There was about building confidence, business support, and increasing activity in the Chatswood CBD, about bringing people back in so that the businesses had customers ready to help them recover. So in terms of building confidence, what we'll be publishing is an annual statement of business activity, a kind of a State of the Union report, which will be available, and the Mayor will launch that probably around July or August time, to help people understand where we're at and what's happening in the area. And we established a business forum, which met at the beginning of February for the first time, and will meet quarterly throughout the year. And this is where we're engaging and bringing together all the key businesses in the area and the key business organizations, so that we can work together, council and the business community, in terms of helping drive that economic development process, and to get feedback both ways. We can explain what we're doing and the businesses can tell us what the issues are. We developed an online business toolkit, which is on the council's website in the business section. And that's just a step-by-step process that businesses can go through to help them in terms of driving that business, but also seeing any gaps that they might have. In terms of business support, the council has initiated paying invoices for local businesses within 7 days. And that started in February. Part of the reason for that is to recirculate money into the economy. And we're encouraging other local businesses to do the same, because the more the money goes around the economy, everybody benefits. And that's a very strong leadership message from the council that we're doing that. And we're initiating the Buy Local program, which we'll talk about in a moment. And the next 2 things, the training sessions and the doing business with council, we're developing at the moment. So the doing business with councils about how local businesses can help win some of those council contracts and win some of the procurement processes. So again, we can keep some of the money locally. And the wider business training sessions, we'll be working with some private sector providers to give businesses training in key areas that they're looking for, and that's what we're developing. In terms of the Chatswood CBD activity, and the Moore Market, we extended that towards the end of last year to help that recovery and bring people back in. We reduced the fees for the stall holders. So we got about 90–95% occupancy on each one of those. And that was really useful in starting to get people used to coming back into the CBD in an open space, so they felt safer and the trading, and that was very successful. We'll be doing a food and drink promotion campaign, building on things we've done before, which Sam will talk about. And also we've been increasing and working with businesses to increase outdoor dining. So the council now has a process that's very quick, very easy, and fast turnaround approvals for that. And we've already seen an increase in some of the outdoor dining areas. So the current activities we're working through at the moment is the data dashboard, and providing all that information, supporting local jobs and businesses with the Support Local campaign, and the food and drink, which is highlighting one of our key local business sectors in terms of employment, but also the number of businesses as well. And obviously Chatswood has a huge number of food businesses. In terms of the laneways, we'll be commencing works on those in July, because we got a $1.4 million Commonwealth grant, which is also about stimulating the economy and bringing people back into centres and creating more public space around those. And the Better Business Partnership will be continuing to support them in terms of helping businesses with their environmental upgrades. So recent new activities we've done, council, its last meeting in April, approved an economic development grants, and this will be grants for small business startups and innovative projects, and we'll be calling for grant applications and approving those from July this year. Council also approved initiating some business awards, so we celebrate our best businesses and highlight those. So we're defining the criteria for those at the moment, with the first awards to be given out in July. And at the concourse, the heart of Chatswood and the heart of the North Shore and the Arts Sense, we'll be appointing a new precinct manager to help revitalise that and bring that back to the level that we really want it to be, so that it becomes sort of a key attractor within Chatswood. All of this will then, so instead of just sitting back and writing a strategy and then doing things, we're sort of running things in parallel. We're running programs and projects to help that recovery and growth. We're also developing the strategy for the much longer term future. So about defining our vision, what the future growth sectors, what job growth areas we want to target and bring people in, what business opportunities there will be and what we drive towards and what we encourage, how we support business growth in those areas, and also targeting some key developments and projects around the area to bring in more of that space and activity for businesses to operate from. And all through this process, we'll be engaging with local businesses, which we do every day anyway, get that feedback of what's happening. And the aim is to have that available in August this year. That's what we're doing.
Wow, it's a lot, John.
It's a little bit, yes.
Yeah, that is very, very comprehensive. And it's interesting, I know that you co-hosted the Mayor's Business Forum, and we're there, and it was really interesting to hear from those businesses and what they'd been through in COVID. Do you want to just describe a little bit about the feedback from that forum and the different way that business is being done now in the city of Chatswood in particular?
Yeah, it's fascinating in terms of how businesses were incredibly adaptable and adapted to COVID in terms of how they got products to their customers, how they got their customers into their products. So we had some delivery businesses combining to do joint deliveries of food. Also, a lot of businesses discovering the online process for the first time and developing that. And the feedback that we got from businesses was that they were really pleased that we were having this conversation with them as well, and being a part of that decision-making process within council.
And what fascinated me too was the way that the restaurants, for example, might have been really busy on a Friday night or during the week and not so much, whereas they were finding that the pattern of business had changed. Lots of people working from home, for example, on Fridays. So they were busier during the week rather than on the Friday night trade.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting shift because people have moved to be around more space. So one of the local alcohol venues that we have was saying that they're now getting a lot of people in on Tuesday nights, which they never used to, and Friday lunches. But also what we discovered was the smaller areas outside of Chatswood, where those business communities are, their trade went up during COVID. So that whilst the CBD came down, the local areas like Northbridge and Castle Crag, the businesses there actually had more people because people were working from home and actually suddenly discovering what was on their doorstep, which was really useful and really good. And I think that'll be a long-term trend as well. So keeping those local centres vibrant and community hubs like the local coffee shop.
Yeah, and I know that council's done a lot of work with the local centres strategy, for example, very timely because we were doing that work just as COVID was hitting, and that focusing on being able to walk to your local centre, we had identified pre-COVID as being so important, and of course that's paid off and certainly proven itself, hasn't it?
And there's a lot of people who were discovering for the first time their local coffee shop and thinking it was brand new, and yet it had been there 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And finding new people within their community as well. And that also helps business. People start to trade locally within their community as well.
Yeah, I know when I was getting around talking to local coffee shop owners and local butchers in particular, they were the ones that seemed to be the real COVID winners, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, so there's been a very different shift, and that's why within the recovery plan we were focused on bringing people back into the Chatswood CBD as well, because that was the area that had seen a decrease in some instances of 60%.
And we've got a question that's come through from Melbourne. And Melbourne's saying it's a great presentation so far. And John, learning about the next steps, you mentioned projects, and are you able to give examples of that?
Well, we're starting to, some of the projects we're talking about are the laneways, the food campaign, the support local, but also as part of the the economic development program, that's what we're going to tease out as well and bring some of those projects that people want out. And that might be in training, it might be in business development. We probably going to be looking at some co-working space as well and some property development.
Right. And so this is part of the reason why we're holding things like the business forums and getting together regularly with businesses. I guess it doesn't want to be a council-driven approach. It needs to be a business-driven approach and us responding to what their needs are. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, we're all in this together and it's cooperating, so we can set some of the leadership strategy, but certainly some of the on-the-ground projects that businesses are looking for, and that's what we'll respond to and build those, rather than us saying that's what we think is needed. We actually want to deliver what is genuinely needed.
Yeah, and so we're expecting that to be available by August, I believe.
August, yeah.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Also, the business awards, it was interesting when we've been talking to local businesses and the way that businesses have stepped up on occasions, particularly during COVID. And you and I spoke about the need to recognise those businesses that are really going above and beyond, particularly from the community. I know we had our local distiller who changed the formula to make hand sanitizer. He was dropping off to the local police station and other people in the community. And we saw lots of examples of that. Hospo Market, for example, a new innovation kind of in competition, I guess, to Uber Eats, etc. So most of the money was going back then to the individual restaurants making the takeaway food, and they were donating food through to the local Life Source Food Bank. And so we were really so thrilled with the way that businesses responded in a time of crisis, and I think only right that they should be recognised for those efforts.
Absolutely, and it also builds that understanding that business is about cooperation. It's not always about competition, and if businesses work together, they can create a bigger economy, and everybody benefits a lot better from that.
And with these grants and awards, is there any other focus that you're looking at there?
No, we're starting those quite small at the moment. They're relatively small grants, but they're aimed at small startup businesses, innovative projects, maybe getting businesses just off the ground. And we'll see what the response is for that. And if we need to develop that further, we will.
Yeah, it sounds terrific. And you did say about identifying key growth business sectors and attracting new businesses to the area. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you go about doing that? And are there key business sectors for Willoughby?
Well, it's quite interesting. If we look at some of the data, we have sectors that are very high, for instance, in outputs. That's the amount of money they generate. So information and media and telecoms are like that, but there are a very small number of businesses. But we have other areas with high numbers of businesses, but sort of small numbers of employees, and others with high employees and small number of businesses. So retail trade, for instance, we have quite a large number of businesses, but huge numbers of employment within that sector. So each sector has its nuances within it. And so what we're going to do is tease out which of those key sectors. There's about 8 in Willoughby, which is probably a bit large for what we want to attract. And then once we've highlighted those key ones we want to develop, then we start working with businesses in those sectors to see what they need to develop, what training they need, what space they need, and see how we can work to develop all of that.
Wow. So I hope everyone's getting the sense that a lot going on here at Willoughby City Council under John's leadership. We're very excited about the future. We know that it has been tough for businesses, and we're doing whatever we can to try and support them. So if you've got other ideas as well, we would love to hear from you. And certainly John's still working through this process of developing a strategy. So now would be an excellent time to engage. And just so you know what further we're doing in that respect, we're now going to move on to our second presentation. And this is a presentation on a new innovation, love new innovations. And this is our data dashboard. And it's about crunching the numbers on the state of the economy in Willoughby, and also what you need to know when you're starting a business in the city of Willoughby. And we're absolutely thrilled that we've got Elliott with us. Ella, welcome. You come highly recommended, I've got to say, because you've got a lot of technical expertise, a lot of strategic expertise, and you've been beavering away putting together this fantastic dashboard. So over to you to tell us more about it.
Thank you, Mayor Gale. Welcome everyone online. So I'm the business improvement specialist here at Willoughby, and as Mayor Gale said, I've been working with John on developing some economic dashboards, which will allow you to actually start to look at some of the, data-based, evidence-based decision-making to help you along your own journey in this area. Of course, the purpose of these dashboards are, based around the research that it allows you to pull together, that we've actually enabled through pulling together multiple sources of digestible live data. It also supports the business planning, and ideas of future trends, issues that may arise as a result of some of the data that is pulled out, and just the connection between data sets that allows you to connect things from everything from the ABS to crime stats to, Australian data. In terms of where you can find this, it's now live on our website. It's within the, if you go through the menu to the business section, and then you'll find a link to the economic data dashboard in there, and you'll find it there. You can also search for it through the search menu as well. Now, we don't have it live this evening, so you're going to have to go and jump on the website yourselves a bit later. But on screen, you should see an example of the first dashboard, one of 6 that is live on the website. So this one gives you a bit of an economic overview with our gross regional product, the trend lines on the left, giving a clear indication that Willoughby's trend in that area is very similar to the New South Wales trend. You've got the numbers of businesses registered, and then the middle one is a by sector comparison of businesses, employment, and an output that John was just talking about. And then on the right-hand side, you've got local population, local jobs, and the average unemployment rate. So that's a bit of an overview of the economics. But the other pages include things about employment, business-specific data, public safety. We have a page on the COVID impacts over the last 12 months as well. And the last page is about development. And, if you're applying for a DA or a CDC, you can start to delve into how long that might take you. So this dashboard is also live. It is very dynamic as well. You can drill into each chart. So on screen, you can see a larger version of that middle chart from before, which is the employment, business, and output by industry. And if you click on this in the live version, you can actually pull up and highlight specific areas of this. And for instance, here, I'm not sure whether you can tell, but that very long red line towards the bottom is that information, media, and telecommunications that John was talking about earlier. And you can see that while it has a low number of businesses, the incredibly high output or revenue. And it's also one of the top employers in Willoughby. The dashboards here, whether you're inside one of these, highlighted charts, you can also start to see some of the trends that are developing as well. Some other key data is included, is actually included together to start help paint a story. So you can understand from these 3 graphs that are taken from the employment page of the dashboards, you can start to understand that there's a declining unemployment until we had the effects of COVID last year start to hit us. And the same, you can understand the trend of the employment was fairly steady with a similar sort of 0.6 reduction in the employment as we move into that 2020 area. And then participation in the workforce as well is fairly steady as well. So in terms of how you might use this dashboard. So for instance, if someone was interested in starting a retail business in Chatswood, you could jump into the dashboard and understand that there's an increasing gross regional product, indicating a growing economy. You've got an increasing numbers of businesses, which is likely showing an increasing number of customers as well. You can spot an increasing, supporting that as well as an increasing population. And you've also got local jobs are trending upwards as well, which indicates potential employees. The retail sector is 13.5% of the economy, which shows that there's a skilled staff base for your business as well. You've got an employment rate, which is steady, and tourism as well. So you're inviting, people to your business who are beyond just your locals. Low levels of crime, indicating a safe trading environment. And you're looking at about a 10-day development time for an application for a CDC. So in terms of how to use the data dashboard and what you might be able to get out of it, that's some of the information that will now be available to you.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. So how can you expand the data to get more detail? How do we go about doing that?
Well, once you jump into the live version, it's very much around where possible. I've linked as much data as I can. As they're such diverse data sets, it can be a little difficult, but it allows you to highlight things that are linked when you click on different areas, and that will bring up the information that's associated with that. So you might be able to see that in 2017, there was a dip in the GRP, as well as a slight rise in unemployment, for instance.
So where are you getting all these different data sets? You mentioned ABS, and so where else do you mine this information from?
It's a great question. There's from this, we've got the ID population experts who give us a lot of population data, the Department of Education, New South Wales crime statistics, the ABS. Google is providing a number of mobility data around COVID, as well as Data Australia.
All right. So I know the census was last 2016, so getting a little bit old now.
Yeah.
So how do you accommodate that into your stats?
So there's a number of different data sources. Some, the census every 4 years, though there's other data sources that are updated on a monthly basis and others quarterly. So we have systems in place to update this data as soon as the refresh comes through.
Right. So we're not relying on 2016 out of date kind of thing.
Where possible, we're using this year.
Yeah. And so it looks like it's a good time then to start thinking about businesses in Chatswood. What would your advice be to people that are thinking about taking that plunge?
I'm a big data person, so I would say jump on, have a look at the dashboard, understand some of the specific information for your sector through the website. And then we also have the online toolkit that John mentioned earlier to help you along that process.
So lots of tools. And we've got a question here. Melvin's asking, does the data board slice data from other councils to compare with Willoughby Council and others? And he's saying it looks like a great use of Power BI. Is that a buzz term that I don't know about?
Power BI is the software that we've used. It's a Microsoft product.
There we go. Someone's across it out there.
Well to spot that. So at the moment, we don't have comparison to other councils. If there is an appetite for that, it is possible that we might be able to do so in the future.
And I gather that this is a work in evolution. And I would say if people had something they were particularly interested in, they're not seeing on the dashboard, can they reach out to us and we'll consider that?
Yes, most certainly.
Yeah, I think that's it. We just want to respond to whatever the requests are. The one I was curious about too was the crime stats. Any insights there?
Well, there's 3 different crime stats that we've popped into the dashboard. We are very well placed, ranking fairly low in crime in I believe, I don't have it off the top of my head. You'll have to check.
Nothing like putting you on the spot like that, yeah.
But non-domestic violent assault, we're very low rated in terms of that. We're also very lowly rated on sorry, John, did you say something? Theft as well.
Right.
So we're doing very well there.
Isn't that good? Yeah. So nice, safe environment. No wonder people like our outdoor markets at night. I know they've got lots of families that say to me that they're more than happy to have the kids up here on a Friday night experiencing the noodle market on their own as a little step towards independence and freedom. So that's good to hear. Terrific work. And we look forward to building on that further. I'm sure it's going to be great use to our local businesses going forward. So thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's terrific. Right, we are going to move now to the third stage of our presentation. So we're going to be first hearing about supporting locals, something I'm deeply passionate about. Love our local businesses, love the way they support communities. So how are we going to be supporting local, John?
Okay, I mean, the key thing about supporting local is keeping money in the economy, and it's that circular economy. So every dollar we spend goes to somebody local who spends it, and so on. So that's the kind of the core focus of it. And that keeps everyone in business. So in terms of the particulars of this, it's not clicking through. There we go. This was a key part of the economic recovery plan that I mentioned that we passed last October. And this is a campaign that we're starting to highlight how supporting local keeps those services in the local economy. So if you keep buying that coffee from your coffee shop, the coffee shop stays open, keeps providing that service for you. That business keeps on trading. So they're providing local jobs, they're buying products, hopefully locally. And those local jobs are in the local community, so people can have a range of options, and also provide some training and starts for people in the workplace. And it maintains that vibrant local economy and that local community as well. So the core base and the rationale for doing this are really key. And so the way we're doing that is around promotions and information, and encouraging community and businesses to use local suppliers. So think about where you're buying from. Is it down the road, or are you having it shipped in from somewhere else? Try and use somebody local. Encouraging trade with other businesses as well within your locality. So to think about that again and highlight those processes. So the awards is part of that as well, but we'll be doing some promotional work. Encouraging people to buy locally produced products as well. So there's a range of artworks, especially around here, and we have art galleries. So buying those, but it can be anything that's manufactured or produced as well. And getting people to shop at local retailers, all retailers, because they provide great sources of employment for people. And to eat and drink at local hospitality venues, and we have a lot of hospitality venues which are amazingly good. So I don't think we're going to have too much difficulty encouraging people to do that. So the way we're kind of focusing on this is a number of key areas. So the first one is our ACT. And so council is showing by leadership and by doing its own actions, and that's by paying those suppliers within 7 days. So we're doing what we're encouraging other people to do. We are examining our spending itself to ensure that we use local suppliers in all our purchasing as a preference thing, and we'll be looking to bring forward to council how we can add a weighting in its procurement process so that we can help support local suppliers. In terms of promotion, we're going to show how we procure products and how we do that locally, and what those local businesses are, and again, by leadership, showing what we're doing, and also by using the business awards to celebrate those local business successes and the key things that are, just going above and beyond, I think is an easy phrase. We're going to educate. So we're going to show how businesses can support each other in that supply chain in the Willoughby area. So seeing what circular elements are around that. That's a big piece of work. And also demonstrating how that spending locally I talked about keeps the money circulating around the economy. So if you go to the cafe and spend money, and the cafe buys its cakes from the local businesses, and the cafe owner then goes into town and spends money in another shop, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And that's those benefits, and showing how that keeps working. So that's kind of a quick précis without going into the details of exactly what we're going to do, but that's coming.
And it is amazing when you talk to the local shop owners. I remember going to a restaurant locally, and they were saying, well, we use the butcher across the road and the local fruit and veg guy who's supplying with the fruit and veg. And it's this whole circular economy thing. And I know even my 2 children have worked locally. They've got their part-time jobs, and the skills that they've learned from that has been fantastic, and has also embedded them in that local sense of community and that feeling, which has been absolutely fantastic. And so you've talked about buying locally, and when you think about buying locally, you think about local centres. So how does shopping at the local shopping malls fit into all this?
Well, the local shopping malls, we're not discouraging people from buying from the big businesses. And you mentioned it there with your 2 children. Those big businesses provided great employment opportunities, but they also provide great training as well, and that engagement in how to work in a business, and even training people in how to run their own businesses. So we support those big trading entities because they're very vital to how we live, and how we shop and the circular economy. But that we support those as well. This is not about small businesses great and big businesses bad. This is about local businesses and whatever scale they may be.
Absolutely. And I'm surprised that local businesses often have a terrific input into community as well. So it's not just the small ones, as you point out. And it can't all be small business. Sometimes we do need those big businesses to supply things that the small businesses can't.
And we'd like all our small businesses to become big businesses.
Yes.
So we're not going to discourage big business, because that's the aim, because they employ more people, they spend more money, they produce more wealth.
Absolutely. Yeah, fantastic. Good insight. So shop local is the message, and but not necessarily just your local stores, but let's support everyone in the city of Willoughby. Our next presentation is going to be on food and culture in Chatswood, something very close to my heart and also my stomach. Very pleased that we've got Samantha O'Connor joining. Now, what's your official title, Samantha?
Media Marketing and Events Manager.
Media Marketing and Events. So Samantha and the team are responsible for all those fantastic events that we get to. I know that the events team got a big rap on the weekend from the Anzac Day services. Council put a lot of work into that, and we appreciate all the work that your team has, not only for Anzac Day, but of course the many other events that we see. And media, it's a big role that you've got. So congratulations on all you're doing. You're going to share with us a bit about food and culture now.
I am. Thank you, Gail. So I'm going to talk about how we support the economy and the vibrancy of Chatswood through food and culture. And you might be asking, well, why? Sorry, Jason, can I just get the, oh yeah, there we go. Thank you. Sorry, just a technical hitch there. You might be asking why a focus on food and culture? And there are a few reasons. Of course, we have the Concourse Performing Arts Centre in the heart of Chatswood CBD, and that's really the cultural hub of the North Shore. It provides great opportunity for local artists to perform, and it's really growing in its ability to host popular high-end events. And I think on the weekend we just had sell-out crowds to Human Nature. So a fantastic event there, really kind of raising its profile in that space. From the census data from 2016, we know that accommodation and food caters for about 9.2% of employment in Chatswood, so that's quite substantial. We also have 4 major retail centres with Chatswood Chase, Westfield Chatswood, and the Mandarin Centre and the Lemon Grove Shopping Centre, a little bit smaller, but really cater for quite unique Asian markets. We also have over 850 food and restaurant outlets in the local area, which is just phenomenal.
It is phenomenal.
So we really are a melting pot of cultures and cuisines. And Taste Tours Sydney has quoted Chatswood as being the only place in New South Wales with such a wide range of Asian cuisines all in the one place. And they dub it Sydney's Little Asia.
Ah, there you are.
So just having a look at the growth of food culture, I guess in the world and also in Australia, we really have seen quite a profound increase in professional Instagrammers and bloggers on social media, in particular on Instagram. And you can see a snapshot of our Willoughby Instagram page there. Food and culture is really becoming embedded just with our local community. So we have amateurs really seeking out unique places to eat and to learn about other cultures and seeking the stories of the restaurateurs and the chefs. Our Chatswood Mall Markets is really becoming a testing ground for new restaurants. There we go. So there's an example of a food blog there on some gravity-defying pancakes from Graham Pancakes in Chatswood Interchange. I'm yet to taste them, but they look amazing. Also, our Chatswood Mall Markets is a testing ground for new restaurants. So the image there is of Black Star Pastry, quite a well-known patisserie in Sydney, and that's at the nighttime Chatswood Mall Markets at one of our Vivid festivals. Chatswood's also becoming a testing ground or an entry point for unique and innovative food products and brands, and a couple of really interesting brands that we've had here in the past as Zumbo Patisserie Butter, which is a fried chicken and sneakers or sports shoes store, a really interesting concept. Mr. Stone Pot and Toasty Smith, which is, these huge toasty cheese sandwiches. They're just delicious. So looking at food on social media, worldwide, we know that 43% of Instagram users are interested in food and drink, making it the third most popular topic, just behind travel and music. The food industry is responsible for about 12% of all posts on social media. And we know from our millennials that about 60% of them will look at a menu, a restaurant menu through social media, and 30% of them will actively avoid restaurants that have a weak Instagram presence. Now, if you go onto Instagram and have a look at hashtag food, you'll find about 440 million posts on food and drink. So, you know, it kind of gives rise to our the reason that we want to promote food in Chatswood. From our Chatswood social media pages, about 50% of our posts are about food and drink. And of course, for the Chatswood More Markets Facebook page, about 80% of our posts are of food and drink. And you can understand why, because it's predominantly a food market. Our top performing organic post has come from a partnership with Adam Lau, who is one of the previous MasterChef winner. And he did a post on the 5 best dumplings in Chatswood, which reached 13,000 people without even spending any money.
Wow.
So how do we do it? How do we promote food in our food businesses? Well, we do it through our Chatswood food campaigns, and we align them with our festivals and events. And some examples, the Taste of Asia food tours are really bespoke, in-person guided tours around Chatswood, unearthing the hidden gems of restaurants that you can find in our laneways, and connecting people to the chef and the stories that lie within those restaurants. Through our Vivid Eats program, we enlist, I guess, restaurants around the area to be part of, to offer up a special menu item that we can promote for them, along with all of our other marketing within the festival. So things like glowing cocktails, bright milk drinks, vivid dumplings, and we've also had an illuminated night market. Our Emerge Food Trail was featured in 2020, so that was last year at the back end of the pandemic of the lockdown, where largely that spring festival was an online or a virtual event. And we were able to get featured in the Sydney Morning Herald as a key COVID-safe component of the event, our Emerge Food Trail. And of course, with our Lunar New Year Festival, we have a Festival Eats program that runs along with that. And key for the last couple of festivals was our partnership with a food ambassador, Adam Lau. His posts for us socially have been amazing. He had one post, one video that reached 22,000 people within the first week. And overall for the festival campaign, we reached over 400,000 people. So it's aligning food with our campaigns. It's a really good opportunity for us to reach big audiences and help our food businesses in our local area. So what are we doing that's new? And in our response to the COVID recovery, we supported our local food markets. So that's the Chatswood More Markets. Now, you might remember last year when the supermarket shelves were all empty and food markets in Sydney and New South Wales, and I guess Australia as well, became a really important source of local produce for our residents. So we partially opened up Chatswood More Markets, which inevitably gave continued employment to the stall holders and a regular income from them that they were relying on. Chatswood was one of the only Sydney and definitely the only North Sydney food market that was operating at that time. Wow. Needless to say, we had quite strict COVID
yes, in a COVID-safe way, of course, yes.
Our Festival Eats program now, along with our events, which are also modified at the moment, promotes self-guided tours. So you can see an image there of our Festival Eats program with Year of the Rat. We also did the same with Year of the Ox this year, where we suggest places for people to go and to eat while they're enjoying the highlights of the festival. We also supported the New South Wales government to promote the Dine and Discover scheme with a media release and social posts, and I believe Elliott did an interview as well.
Yes, that's right.
And we have over 150 participating businesses in the scheme at the moment in Chatswood.
150, did you say? Wow, well done.
Yeah. Leading and driving economic benefit through our Culture Bites events. Now, Culture Bites is an interesting program. It's a trial program of cultural events, and as the name suggests, they are bites of culture. So starting with a pocket opera that we ran with our Willoughby Symphony Orchestra in March in partnership with Pacific Opera. It was a 1-hour opera just to give a taste of what opera is like for new audiences. So really trying to bring new younger audiences to the concourse and to Chatswood. And along with that, a food campaign to tell people how they can enjoy the food in Chatswood when they come to visit the opera. The next program, I might just skip to the next slide quickly if I can to do a bit of a plug. So happening in April and May, at the moment we have a Cactus Garden at the concourse, which is in line with the Comedy Festival, Sydney Comedy Festival. Again, if you hop on to visitchatswood.com.au, you'll be able to see the food campaign that is aligned with that program. So encouraging people to eat in the local area. And in May, we have a K-pop night that will attract a different audience. And so we'll be honing in on that audience and the places that they might like to eat, and in particular, some of our Asian dessert restaurants. And coming up later in May, we have Next Chapters, which is a partnership between Willoughby Symphony Orchestra and Legs on the Wall, incorporating some acrobatic performances in line with the music, and the acrobatics will happen above the audience and above the stage. So a first in New South Wales that we know of, and certainly something not to miss.
Wow.
John mentioned it earlier on, the event grants or the community grants. We run each year an event grants round for new events that are coming up, and that they just provide some seed funding to help support the growth of the events in the local area. During Emerge, our spring festival last year, we provided support for companies who wanted to participate in Emerge, but weren't yet clued in on how to run a virtual event. And one of those was a local barbecue supplier who also did cooking programs and ran a steak and Shiraz night for us during Emerge. And he was booked out and had to run second and third sessions.
Fantastic.
Yeah. And we also have, over the course of the last 12 months, provided COVID safe plan support to businesses and event organisers.
Wow.
So an advice section there.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Wow. So I know during COVID, events was very challenging, but I was so impressed with the way that you innovated and were able to move virtually to make sure that people were still included. It was quite remarkable. What are some of the events that you moved to be a virtual event rather than an in-person one?
Yeah, it was actually quite tricky because the restrictions were changing so often. In fact, they were changing almost daily. So, you know, one day we would have an event that was going full steam as planned, and then the next day it would completely change according to the cases that were increasing and decreasing. But one event that we ran virtually was the Pep Festival.
Yes.
And it was such a great result. It did require the team to stretch themselves and seek new skills in videography and running film sessions and you know, setting a cast and particularly with the Pet Festival, it was about organising animals. So that was quite tricky. But we had a great response, and you were part of that virtual event. It was fantastic.
Well, yeah, interview with the ranger was fantastic. We were able to get our little dogs out there.
Yeah.
And so the innovation is a real credit to you and the team. Very, very difficult circumstances. I did like seeing the photo of Adam Liao. Just seeing his face makes you want to eat, doesn't it? There's something about him that is very engaging, and you think, oh, I want to eat those dumplings that guy's eating. Just fabulous. So he's been a terrific ambassador for us. And I know that you've trying to run a bit of a food layer right through all of these events that you're doing. How are businesses responding to that?
Oh, the businesses love it. So our events team have people on the ground who will physically go into businesses and talk to them about the events that we're running. So it's not just that they get a sense of awareness of what council is achieving in the event space, but they just love to be involved, and they get really excited. And you know, during Vivid, they'll have lights on their staff, and they're just really getting into the groove of things. So it's about creating in a CBD. It's quite difficult to create a unified approach and have that feeling of community, but bringing people together through the food layering, it really helps to garnish that sense of community. Yeah,
but isn't that great that businesses want to be part of it too? And we've got a question that's come through from Craig Campbell, Councillor Craig Campbell, I should say, our Deputy Mayor, and he's just questioning around the 9.2% of the economy related to food and accommodation, because as we discussed earlier, 2016 census. Just wondering, if has the world moved on from there? Have you got a sense for if that is still a relevant number?
To be honest, I don't. The figure was taken from the 2016 data, and I assume that would have changed a little bit, but I'm not sure how that's changed.
Yeah, and
I'm quite keen to see.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see also the impact of COVID. This is part of our data dashboard. I can see that we might be able to get some use out of that to just find out if there was a dip. As we talked with John earlier, the fact that the Friday night trade perhaps might have dropped away somewhat in Chatswood CBD, but moved to local centres. We're in a very, very changing environment, aren't we?
It is very fluid.
Yeah, and from an events perspective, I admire the way that you're able to step up, create interesting events. The Cactus Garden, I hear, is absolutely fantastic. I'm thinking about wandering down there tonight.
Larger than life.
Yeah, larger than life, which is a great addition to the comedy festival. I've opened the art show that's down there, quite a thought-provoking art show, very contemporary in the art space down at the concourse, and a great opportunity for those people that are going to the comedy festival to pop in and see the art show, and of course our wonderful Cactus Garden.
Absolutely.
And have something to eat, of course.
Yes, definitely have something to eat.
Yeah. So thanks, Sam. It's really interesting talking about our food campaign, all that we're doing in that space to promote food in the city of Chatswood, but also the wonderful events we have too. Terrific to hear from you. And our final presentation this evening, we're going to hear about plans to reinvigorate our CBD laneways. And John spoke earlier about the $1.4 million grant that we received, which we've got to spend by the end of December, I believe.
Yes, we do.
Yes, so we're under a bit of pressure to provide something there. I think December's the deadline. And the man that's going to be handling that for us is Will Robinson. Not from Lost in Space fame, but from Castle Crag fame. Fabulous garden too, yes. And we've discussed that earlier. Will's got a bit of a gardener in his spare time, but his real job is, of course, managing the projects for the laneways, and he's going to be telling us a little bit about what's happening in that space. So over to you, Will.
Thank you, Meg. Microphone on. Thank you, Meg, for that introduction and recognition of my gardening talents, amongst other things. This evening I'll be presenting the Laneways program, which is one that's evolved over a couple of years. It's about recognising the laneways that we have within the CBD as providing a valuable service function, obviously of servicing vehicles and the businesses that operate within them, but also recognising them as the potential to have active pedestrian movement through them, making it safe for pedestrians, and understanding how changing our views and the way that these laneways operate can also support and assist economic activity and development within our CBD. So the purpose of the laneways is initially to change them from solely operating as a service function, but also recognising them as useful links and places within the CBD. We're challenged to be able to create new space. So we really need to be able to recognise the existing spaces that we have within the CBD as to how they can work for us and they can work for the benefit of our community in a safe way. So it's about improving the pedestrian wellbeing and welfare of people moving through those spaces, and they are quite active, the laneways that we have. There's limited access points within the CBD, and the laneways currently operate with pedestrians moving through them as well as service vehicles. So it's adding to the overall network of the way that people can move around the CBD and interact with the space as an environment. It's also creating an understanding of the reuse of these laneways that are currently sort of underutilised in some respect, and provide additional business growth and opportunities where we may be able to seek that sort of economic benefit that can come from how these lanes can change. So the laneways that we're operating with at the moment, a post office lane, so that creates a significant link from the interchange down into Westfield and into the centre of the CBD. So it has a very high level of pedestrian movement. Charlotte Lane, which is a little bit tucked away, and it's sort of mostly wrapped up around the Westfield Centre, but it also does form a valuable link that you can get into Hawkers Lane from Anderson Street there. Spring Place, which is currently operates as a major entry into a number of car parks and service areas, but there is that little shortcut that's called Spring Link that can get you from Westfield, Chatswood, through Spring Link, across Archer Street, and then across into the other shops, the more eastern side of the Chatswood CBD. And Mills Lane, which is really sort of a new lane that we had, which came from the creation of the development that sits next to it. And it links the concourse through to the Chatswood Chase. And that's it's probably the most down the track. It's more like what we're trying to create in a sense. So what are we doing in the laneways generally? What we're doing is moving toward having RMS, Roads and Maritime Service Transport for New South Wales, recognise them as what's being called a shared zone. And that's an area where people and vehicles have the capacity to be able to interact. You're pulling down traffic speed, we're removing the curb and guttering, so we're removing hazards and trip hazards. So it's a single grade area. We're putting a single surface across all of them, where we'll put pattern paving into those areas. We'll be introducing some smart technology, current smart technology into those areas with what's called smart poles. So in addition to having things like Wi-Fi and CCTV, we can also measure valuable environmental data about how we're contributing and to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, how we're reducing heat island effect, and we're starting to reduce the temperature within cities. So we can start to measure that data over time and see how we're improving it. Pedestrians crossing over, we have what's called a continuous footpath. So at the footpath level, if you're walking up, say, Spring Street, you'll be walking at grade, you won't be stepping down a curb onto an area of vehicle pavement and then back up a curb at the other side. You'll be walking through as a continuous extension of the footpath, and that creates a threshold into the laneway. So it creates a definition, and it shows that it's a very strong pedestrian dominated area, and pedestrians have every right to be in that space, as well as vehicles crossing over to it. And we'll be reducing the speed limit within each of those spaces to make sure that it's safer for pedestrians with vehicles turning and manoeuvring. So the future, really looking at what they could be, and this is a couple of sketches from the Changing Lanes program that we put together. You can see Post Office Lane, improving the pedestrian welfare that's in there, making it a more attractive space, because at the moment it looks like a bitumen covered laneway. So making it look a little bit more like some of the work that they've done in Sydney CBD, and moving towards some of the activities that we've had in Melbourne, which is always famous for its laneways and so forth. Spring Place, looking for additional tree cover and softening some of the harsh built environment that's within that space. And Mills Lane, and you can see in each of these sketches the longer term aspiration that really would be desirable is for those spaces to take on a new and a different life, and the potential for either short-term closures for events or even longer-term opportunities to be able to create spaces for activity, events, outdoor dining, and so forth. So what's the program? Pardon me, we have a very ambitious program to deliver this. At the moment, we've been working with our traffic committee, Transport for New South Wales, RMS. We have a construction starting in the middle of this year. We have RMS support to move approvals toward seeking the laneway shared zone status in each of those laneways. And we've had council support in recent meetings with regarding that. We're working with business. We've been holding stakeholder engagement sessions, identifying the improvements that we wish to make, and talking about the sort of benefits that we can bring along, such as additional trading space, space for events, making sure that these spaces aren't cluttered and they have an open area so they can be used for different sort of programs, and creating opportunities for all sorts of new activities. And when's all this going to be done by? we're going to have a ribbon cutting in December for Spring Place as a significant change and a catalyst for the change. So all of the laneways will be constructed this calendar year. I saw that there were some questions that came up.
Yeah, I think you answered them along the way,
Did
which
I?
was terrific. Yes.
Okay.
So well done, you. So Will, fantastic initiative. Very excited about getting our laneways activated. And I know it's complicated, right? Because you've got all these businesses backing onto them, like Post Office Lane is a good case in point, where you've got the rear of shops.
Yeah.
Often there's garbage collection and things. How do you work through with the businesses to try and get where council wants to go to reactivate these spaces and perhaps turn them into outdoor dining areas and places, pleasant places to sit rather than the back of someone's shop that might be garbage focused?
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Just a little bit in there to look.
Yeah.
It is, in some respects, this is one of those initiatives that says if you build it, they will come.
Right.
So ideally, what we need to do is so that businesses can see that we have made a change and we're making an effort, and we recognise that there's a front door and a back door. Everybody talks about how wonderful Melbourne is, and Melbourne had the advantage of having a boom situation 120, 130 years ago that created those sorts of activation within the laneways. We've got a little bit of a different situation in Chatswood because we really need these laneways at the moment to operate in a service function. So there's a combined output. It's really about looking at how they can expand their spaces, how businesses can look differently at what their service areas are, as opposed to somewhere to be able to park their car and unload a vehicle. It's still vital that this happens. And in some respects, you only need one or two people to start to make a change and start to do something. And you hope that other people sort of follow. They don't want to miss out. And we've got, as you identified, we've got Post Office Lane as a great example where one day I was walking down there and someone came out with a concrete saw and cut a big hole in their back wall, and that became another doorway into a business there. So that was a through link that was created. We have a strategy that says we want through links and we want activation of laneways, and lo and behold, without council actually making an effort and doing it, a business has seen the initiative and started to do it themselves. So we'd like to see that where possible, people are doing that, and we're seeing it in a few DAs in some of the other areas where people are having businesses and they're designing their businesses and their restaurants so that there's a front door and the potential to be able to have a back door. And then eventually they'll start to invade and take over those spaces, and people will start to use them, because that gives businesses additional access to footfall. And it's all about how many people go past the front of your shop. And now it's all about the number of people that also go past the back of your shop. And that's valuable that you see and capture that. So it's informing businesses this is the case, and this is an opportunity for them to be able to take advantage of it. But it is important that we actually take the first step in the initiative and say, yes, we are improving these laneways and we're spending a significant amount of money and effort in improving them. And then ultimately we can have and hold and continue to have events such as the events that Sam's already been fostering in the CBD. And if you build it, they will come. The change may not be immediate, but I think the change eventually will be quite profound.
And you touched on events. Is that the plan then, to start holding events in these laneways?
Well, the laneways have already been a venue for significant events such as food festivals. Vivid, we always manage to sort of close them. John had mentioned previously about how we're improving the permit process and the approvals process through streamlining that so that it's a more straightforward exercise to try and do a temporary street closure, because we don't necessarily intend to close these laneways. Over time, they may take on a different dynamic as development activity starts to come along. But we do want to see events there. We've had local businesses interested in wanting to have events there and saying, how can we do it and how can we assist? So we're improving the process by which businesses can go through, have those permits approved and streamline it to some degree.
And I guess that's part of what your role too is, John, improving the way that people can apply, businesses streamlining it, making it, cutting the red tape, shall we say.
Yeah, and we've been talking to some businesses about their requirements, their timelines, their lead-ins, and we're building that into a process so that we can meet those timelines and make the process a lot easier and a lot simpler, and almost kind of repetitive in a way, so they don't have to start from scratch at each event, so that it makes it easier for them to be able to use that space.
Fantastic. Lots and lots of work doing. We've just got one last question coming through from Wendy Norton, Councillor Wendy Norton. She's asking about the Dine and Discover vouchers, Sam. Perhaps if you can have you answer that one there. Just curious about businesses outside the CBD. Are we assisting them with their Dine and Discover vouchers?
Yeah, so we're promoting and creating awareness throughout the whole of the LGA for businesses to register for Dine and Discover. The promotion is not limited to businesses within the CBD, but the figures that I gave today were based around Chatswood, just because of the type of presentation that we were doing.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So we are very much active in promoting people to not only use the Dine and Discover, but also if you're a business to register.
For a business to register.
Fantastic.
Yes, definitely.
So I did promise an hour and a quarter, and we're there nearly to the right time, which has been absolutely fantastic. What a terrific presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Very insightful. I know you've still got a lot of work to do.
Thank you very much. It's been great to have the opportunity to run through these.
No, absolutely fabulous. And of course, Will, exciting space with laneways. Sam with events. Again, hats off to the events team in very difficult circumstances, but you've really stepped up to the plate and still had a great offering for our community, which has been wonderful. And great also Ella, who has told us about the wonderful dashboard and really giving some solid empirical information to us all so that we can make decisions on businesses and what's happening in the city of Chatswood. So we look forward to continuing our conversation with the community on the last Monday of each month, imparting important information about what's happening in not only in the city of Chatswood, but of course the lovely city of Willoughby. And we look forward to speaking to you next month. Thank you.